at our writing associations, we're seeing many EI cases of people who aren't getting the money. And often we have to deal with immigration files because Immigration Canada doesn't seem to be able to deal with its own files. People like Aurélien, who I mentioned, who wants to come live in Matane and become a welder, is seeing issues. So it's all very well to make investments, but we need to see that reflected on the ground. The honourable member will have 3 minutes left after question period in order to continue with the debate. Thank you.
Statements by members, déclaration de député. The honourable member for Canada, Carleton.
Madam Speaker, our city and our democracy is under siege. I spent the weekend speaking with residents and hearing firsthand the harm that the current occupation is having on them and their families. Our mayor has declared a state of emergency, citing the serious danger and threat to the safety and security of residents here in Ottawa. Women, especially women of color, are afraid to venture outside alone and face harassment by protesters. Survivors of domestic violence are being re-traumatized. Ottawa residents are being held hostage in their homes. Madam Speaker, this occupation is threatening the rights and the wellness of the city's most vulnerable residents. Many of our community support services have had to close their doors out of fear. This cannot continue. Our government has asked the RCMP to provide support, and we did. I implore the City of Ottawa and Ottawa Police Service to determine the path forward to resolve this crisis and know that our government is here to support them. They just need to ask, tell us what you need. Thank you.
The honourable member for Bow River.
A lot of municipal leaders have contacted me recently about the issue of retroactive pay for the RCMP. It was settled after a number of years. The RCMP deserve this raise, and they provide the policing in many rural communities, constituencies like mine. But at negotiations, it was with the federal government, not the municipalities, not the province. Mayors have told me this property tax could be anywhere from 5 to 10%. Coming out of COVID, we do not need a tax increase on property, which is a very regressive tax to small businesses in my constituency. The feds negotiated this contract. I believe they should take responsibility for the retroactive pay and not put it on the property owners in my riding. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Nepean.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to wish the Chinese communities in Canada and across the world a very happy, healthy, and prosperous Year of the Tiger. I would like to recognize the contributions of Chinese Canadians have made and continue to make to the socio-economic development of our country and adding to the richness of the multicultural fabric of Canada. I would like to recognize and thank some of the community leaders in Ottawa for their hard work and inspiring leadership. Jin She, founder of Chinese Community Association of Ottawa, and its key members Yang Yang, Timo Lee, Ming Chong He, and Ilong Ma. Jason Zhang of Canada-China Culture and Arts Association. Bin Chen and Xiu Jianzhou of Federation of Chinese Canadian Organizations. Peter So and Yukong Lee of Ottawa Chinatown BIA. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I would like to highlight a wonderful initiative from a family business in Quebec, Pizza Salvatore Restaurants. Tomorrow, this company will give 50% of its pizza sales to its 1,500 employees in the form of a bonus. And that's not all, because the other 50% will be given in the form of free pizzas to community organizations in the region of Saint-Eustache. But this isn't Pizza Salvatore's first charitable action. Last October, to mark its recent opening, this restaurant gave 150 free pizzas to organizations in my riding. In these times of rampant inflation and the pandemic, it is nice to see a local company from my region leading by example by giving to others. What beautiful generosity. Bravo Pizza Salvatore for your business model that is based on solidarity. Once again, Mr. Speaker, Quebec businesses are standing out. Thank you.
The honourable member for Halifax West.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The third Monday in February. The interpreter would like to note that sound quality does not allow for interpretation at this time. Thank you.
Ce qu'elle est aujourd'hui. Cette année, et pour souligner le 10e anniversaire de l'inscription du paysage de Grand Pré à la liste des sites du patrimoine mondial de l'UNESCO, nous allons à l'honneur.
Point of order. Point of order.
I'm sorry, we're going to the honourable member for Sandwich Gulf Islands has a point of order. Do we have a technical issue?
The honourable member was just interrupted by the translator to say that sound quality was not good enough to allow translation. I'd hate for her SO31 to be missed.
Okay, let's try. Let's try. On va le recommencer.
We'll try that again.
Top, but is that a headset that's supplied by the House?
Oui.
Yes, okay then.
Vous pouvez m'entendre
maybe
maintenant?
put
Oui.
peut-être mettre le microphone un peu plus proche de votre. Okay, on va essayer.
Could you move the microphone a bit closer to your mouth? Okay, we'll start again from the top. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The third Monday in February is a holiday to celebrate a person or an event that is of great interest and that contributed to making Nova Scotia what it is today. This year's honoré, and to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Grand Pré inscription on UNESCO's World Heritage Site list, we will be honoring this outstanding traditional agricultural heritage facility, still in use, that was founded by Acadians. And I hope that all families in Halifax West and in my province will enjoy their time with their families. And I also encourage them to take this opportunity to learn more about this gem in our own backyard and our Happy Nova Scotia Heritage Day. Thank you.
Merci.
Honourable member for Grande Prairie Mackenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our communities are made better by the selfless contributions of so many that live within our region. The Passionate Heart Awards are an opportunity to recognize and celebrate individuals and organizations who contribute to our community, enhance social services, and improve the quality of life for all of us. The family community support services of the city and the county of Grande Prairie, the towns of Beaver Lodge, Sexsmith, and Wembley have made the Passionate Heart Awards an important annual tradition. Coming together as a community to recognize the commitment and the hard work of our frontline social services professionals and see their excellence honored by their peers and colleagues is always a meaningful occasion, made even more significant by the challenges that we've faced over the last couple of years. On behalf of local residents, I'd like to extend a special congratulations to this year's nominees and award winners. Thank you for your commitment to helping build a stronger and better future for all of us.
The honourable member for Surrey Centre.
In honor of Black History Month, I want to acknowledge the great work of organizations that highlight Black voices, support the Black community in Surrey. Solid State works with local youth to build co-ops with support from professionals, training, and employment opportunities. Co-ops like Daily Dose of Blackness, who use various platforms to share stories that center around and celebrates Black youth experiences. And Black, a Black youth-owned and operated gallery performance space opening this year that will support young Black artists and events as well as BIPOC artists of all ages. The Kingdom Act Foundation is involved in a number of initiatives, including community development, youth mentoring, food security, and much, much more. I also want to thank Great Light Healing Community Services Society, a very lively and energetic group, which amongst the various programs it delivers, helps seniors, particularly Black Canadian seniors, learn online literacy and cybercrime prevention techniques, all while having a blast. And lastly, the Nuru Training Association and Umoja Operation Compassion Society of British Columbia works with newcomer immigrants and refugees and provides various educational and technical and vocational training opportunities. Thank you for the work you do to support our community, and happy Black History Month.
The honourable member for Cape Breton, Canso.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in this House today to share with my colleagues, constituents, and all Canadians a piece of Gaelic culture that can be enjoyed from anywhere in the world. Here in Cape Breton Council, we take pride in our Gaelic roots. Recently, a constituent of mine, Ryan MacDonald, launched a Celtic radio station based out of the Gaelic College's new location in Mabou, Cape Breton. Within the first week of the Celtic radio station being on, they reached over 15,000 listeners. An integral part of Gaelic culture is music, and with music comes dancing, the iconic ceilidhs, kitchen parties, where strong connections are made to the Gaelic culture. CBFM is an excellent way to share Gaelic culture, a way to make those folks who have ventured far and wide connected to the East Coast just a little bit more. Most importantly, it's a way to keep Gaelic culture alive. Mr. Speaker, I'm watching, but more importantly, I'm listening to the success of CBFM, the thriving Celtic radio station. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for South Shore St. Margaret's.
I rise to pay tribute to former Member of Parliament William Atwell, elected in 1984 to serve Don Valley East, and in 1988 for the riding of Markham. He passed away on Christmas Eve. Bill was a gentleman of the highest order. He rose from humble beginnings to be an executive in the financial services industry. His 1984 election win was my first campaign. I campaigned with him every day. I then joined him in Ottawa, which changed my life forever. He advocated for the right of Jews in the Soviet Union to emigrate, helping Nathan Sharansky escape. He fought for human rights and believed in fiscal responsibility. He was key in the restructuring of Canada's financial service industry laws. He served as parliamentary secretary to the Prime Minister. He made a difference in everything he did. He left this world a better place for his family, for his community, and for his country. I shall miss him, his political mentorship and friendship. On behalf of this House, thank you, Sandy, Howard, Pamela, and Leslie, for sharing him with our country.
The Honourable Member for Newmarket, Aurora.
Mr. Speaker, last year, Central York Fire Services Chief Ian Lang received his 45-year provincial service bar, awarded in recognition of and public appreciation for his dedication and hard work. His career in fire services began in Mississauga, where for 34 years he served as a firefighter, a captain, a district chief, and an assistant deputy chief. And in 2010, he joined the Central York Fire Services, where he has served as the fire chief ever since. Chief Lang's continued vision and guidance is an inspiration for the fire service and to our community. So on behalf of Newmarket Aurora, I would like to thank Chief Lang for his many years dedicated to making our community a safe and better place. Congratulations, Ian, on this well-deserved recognition.
The Honourable Member for Langley Aldergrove.
Mr. Speaker, the recent flooding in British Columbia brought out the best in Canadians. Neighbours helping neighbours, charities springing into action, and farmers working together for the common good. I want to highlight the work of an exemplary corporate citizen in my riding of Langley Aldergrove, a whole industry actually. Mutual Fire Insurance of British Columbia was started about 100 years ago by farmers for farmers, and they had insured many of the properties that were damaged. Now, besides their legal obligation to pay benefits, MFI-BC also made a charitable donation to help those hardest hit. Now, keeping with a sense of mutuality, mutual insurance companies across the country followed suit, and I want to ask the Honourable Member for Bay of Quinte in Ontario to thank the team at the Bay of Quinte Mutual Insurance Company for their very generous donation to help British Columbians hardest hit by this natural disaster. Mr. Speaker, this is what Canadians do. They help each other in times of need.
The Honourable Member for Bay of Quinte.
Mr. Speaker, just like my honourable member stated, in Canada, when one of us is in need or distress, it is often Canadians who step up the most to help our own. When Canadians help Canadians, Mr. Speaker, it exemplifies just how incredible this country and its people are. Such was the case when British Columbians needed help after the floods this fall. Canadians stepped up where needed to help BC at their time of need. I'm happy to acknowledge that all the way from Bay of Quinte, Ontario, the Bay of Quinte Mutual Fund Company came through to BC with a donation of $100,000 towards the efforts. Neighbors helping neighbors is the entire reason why Bay of Quinte Mutual was founded in 1874. In this case, the neighbor just happened to be a few provinces away. Please join me on behalf of Canada in congratulating Jeff Howell and his company for his incredible support for Canadians in their time of need.
Yes, here, here.
The Honourable Member for Sherbrooke. Mr. Speaker, last Friday, the 24th Winter Olympic Games began in Beijing. While I encourage all Canadian athletes, I'm particularly proud of our Sherbrooke athletes who are participating. I would like to introduce our 8 athletes from Sherbrooke in speed skating. The 3-time Olympic medalist Kim Boutin, world champion Jordan Pierre-Gilles, and world medalist Antoine Genela-Beaulieu. In cross-country skiing, 2-time world medalist Olivier Leveillier. In biathlon, Jules Bournot. In bobski, Samuel Guiguer. In freestyle skiing, Marion Thénault. And in para-Nordic skiing, Line-Marie Bilodeau. Sherbrooke is conducive to the development of Olympic and Paralympic athletes, such as Sylvie Daigle, Annie Perrault, and Mathieu Turcotte. You are an immense source of pride for us all, and especially for our youth. I can't wait to follow you in coming weeks and years. Go Sherbrooke, go, and go Team Canada, go.
The Honourable Member for Nunavut.
This freedom convoy exposes the injustice that First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and people of color experience in Canada. The convoy has the freedom to demonstrate unrestricted violence, mainly without punishment. On the other hand, Indigenous peoples live in fear of reprisal for protecting Indigenous lands as they are met with violence by law enforcement. The CGL pipeline did not achieve the consent of the appropriate First Nations to have their proposal approved. Since then, the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs who have the authority to consent have been forced to defend their territory for the last 7 years. I stand with the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs. I call on the Liberal government to protect Indigenous peoples' rights as accorded in Section 35 of the Constitution Act, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, and to uphold the rule of law. The
Honourable Member for Salaberry-sur-Loire. Mr. Speaker, there are those people whose real impact is measured by their constant and determined involvement. There are those great women who not only have strong convictions, but who are also dedicated to leading by example. These type of people are able to mobilize, inspire, and transmit their passion for the health of our planet. There are those people without whom our community would not be as beautiful, as green, or as aware. I have the privilege to know Francine Mourzeau, a faithful supporter of the environmental cause, who is stepping down from the board of Criver Environmental Group after 31 years of loyal service. Francine, I hope you realize the extent of your impact on your community. You have taken part in every battle. You've left in your wake not only thousands of healthy trees, but also a whole generation of school children who carry the environmental cause. Thank you, Francine. We look forward to seeing you again, and I hope you won't put away your shovel too soon. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Desnete, Mississippi Churchill River.
Mr. Speaker, it is a privilege today to rise and honor the life of World War II Métis veteran Louis Roy. Mr. Roy passed away early in January at 101 years of age. Wow. He enlisted in the Army in 1942 and served Canada in Ireland, Portugal, Italy, and England until his discharge in 1945. A well-respected family man and community member, Mr. Roy spent his years after the war as a trapper and hunter before beginning a career as a carpenter. At the young-hearted age of 85, Mr. Roy built himself a home on the banks of the Beaver River in his home community of Beauval, Saskatchewan, where he enjoyed time with his children and his grandchildren. His granddaughter, Glenda Burnoff, said it best about her grandfather. He was just a very well-respected man. He lived a fulfilled life rich with adventure. He was loved by all. Mr. Speaker, I ask all members in this House today to join me by recognizing the life and the legacy of Louis Roy.
Oh, bravo.
The Honourable Member for Brossard-Saint-Lambert.
Mr. Speaker, I am deeply honoured and quite moved to rise today to honour our Queen, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, on a milestone that none of us will see again. 70 years devoted to the service of her 15 realms and the Commonwealth. 70 years fulfilling a uniquely subliminal contract with the millions of citizens who rely on Her Majesty to provide a continuity that is so difficult to define.
For as long as I can remember, the principle of constitutional monarchy has attracted and engaged me, with our Queen, of course, but even before I became a Canadian citizen. The journey of Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II, has only reinforced this deep commitment. The Queen has become, throughout her 70 years of reign, the facilitator of a societal evolution in historical continuity.
Like few others, my admiration for her steadfastness as well as her capacity to meet the times is boundless. 70 years, almost 25,600 days of unflinching service and commitment. Your Majesty, you are an inspiration who has never let me down. Long live the Queen.
Oral questions. Question orale. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister they want to get back to work, they want to get back to normal life. That's why we're seeing demonstrations not only in Ottawa but right across the country. The Prime Minister has caused division by overtly politicizing vaccines and the pandemic and calling these Canadians names. And now he's saying these protests really aren't his problem. They're the provinces or maybe even the cities. When will the Prime Minister stop hiding, show up for Canadians, show some leadership, and fix the mess that he's created?
The Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate the question. I think that what we have to ask at this moment in time is what needs to get done to get Canadians safe and out of this pandemic. And what we know is the best way we can get out of this pandemic is to get vaccinated. We're all tired. We're all frustrated. But we have to ask how we can continue to sacrifice to keep those safe around us, to make sure that we follow public health measures and do our best to get out of this pandemic, keeping as many people safe and alive as possible.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, Dr. Tam and other health officials across the country have started to change their language on lifting restrictions. According to Dr. Tam, things like vaccine mandates should be re-evaluated. Countries around the world have started to lift restrictions or actually end them altogether. So can the Prime Minister tell Canadians today when the government will quickly respond to our public health officials and begin to lift all the restrictions that they've imposed on Canadians?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, let's be clear that the mandates, most of which she's speaking of, are provincial in nature, that the mandates...
How about the House of Commons one more?
Can we go ahead?
Yeah.
Okay. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition just asked a question. She'd like to hear what has to be said in response to her question. Please let the Honourable Government House Leader answer so she can hear it. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I heard some yelling that they want to end the mandate for truckers to be able to get vaccinated, but I would point out to the honourable members across that the rule exists in the United States, that even if it didn't exist in Canada, they would have to have it in order to enter the United States. Here are the plain and simple facts. Canadians need straight talk about how to get out of this pandemic. That means following public health guidelines. That means getting vaccinated, and yes, it means talking calmly and rationally about what are real solutions instead of trying to be incendiary and try to elevate a situation that is not about the pandemic, that is about politics.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Thanks to that member. I see the Prime Minister is still in hiding, and that member's mansplaining to me how to stay calm and rational, which I don't appreciate. Mr. Speaker, Canadians have suffered. They followed the rules. They've done what they were asked to do. We can't have a slow and drawn-out process of reopening just because the Prime Minister is hiding and in denial. Dr. Moore in Ontario said recently, I think we have to start to understand we've got to learn to live with the virus. In Canada, living means living freely. Will the Prime Minister follow the science, follow the advice of experts, and assure Canadians that he'll be removing all federal vaccine mandates quickly?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, for 2 years, Canadians have dealt with a global pandemic that has stressed all of us. There is not a Canadian who has not gone through an incredibly difficult time. The question that we ask on this side is, what is the science?
Now, the rules say that we stop at 3 o'clock. We've been very flexible going beyond that. I'm sure we don't want to cut off any questions because we can't hear anything. The Honourable Government House Leader from the top, please.
Mr. Speaker, we need to follow science. We need to very closely look at what is the best way to get out of this pandemic using evidence, not politics. We are not in a place where we can afford to play games with public health. Instead, we have to take each step one at a time. The reality is our beleaguered healthcare workers who are on the front lines in hospitals, in healthcare settings across the country are tired. Our hospitals are full. All of us need to step back and ask how we can sacrifice and do everything we can to get out of this following the best public health advice.
L'honorable député de Mégantic-l'Érable.
Mr. Speaker, Dr. Tam said that it's now time to reevaluate vaccination mandates. Dr. Tam is a scientist. We're asking the government to listen to scientists. When they asked the question to the Minister of Health, is there scientific proof behind the vaccine mandates? The Minister of Health said, there is no scientific evidence to back these vaccine mandates for truckers. The question's a simple one. When will the Liberals listen to science and remove restrictions that are now being imposed on Canadians? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, my colleague asked when the government will start to follow the scientific opinions of scientists and doctors, and the answer is we have from the beginning of the pandemic. That's exactly what we have done. I know that that makes the Conservatives on the other side frustrated, that there are people who are creating problems on the Hill. What they're saying, it should be evaluated carefully, and they should not put words in Dr. Tam's mouth. The Honourable Member. The Prime Minister is hiding instead of facing our healthcare problems. Canada is one of the worst OECD countries when it comes to hospitals and doctors per capita. All the premiers of the Council of the Federation have indicated that they've made a unanimous request to the government, and we need funding for our healthcare systems. Getting out of this crisis needs to be through an unconditional increase of health transfers. Will the Prime Minister come out of hiding and increase health transfers to the provinces, or at least discuss it with them? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, for years now, we have had constant and constructive discussions with premiers in provinces and territories to find the best way to support the healthcare system, which is so dear to Canadians. Even last week, I spoke with the President of the Council of the Federation to determine exactly how the federal government can continue to support the healthcare system, as we have always done. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, it's been 10 days that Ottawa has been under siege. For 5 days, the Bloc Québécois has been proposing a crisis unit with all levels of government and police forces. 5 days later, the minister finally announced he was going to create this crisis unit. Good news, but we waited some time for it. 5 days is a long time for citizens who are being bullied. So hats off to him for creating the crisis unit. Now, when will it meet? What is its target date for a game plan? Time is running out. The Honourable Minister.
Monsieur le Président, la communauté s'attend à ce...
Mr. Speaker, communities are expecting for public safety to be maintained and laws enforced. From the beginning, the federal government has supported the rule of law. The RCMP has provided officers and additional support. It is important to note that operational decisions are taken by police independently of the government. We will continue to work closely with them and to ensure that the Ottawa Police Force feels safe. That's the problem. They're unable to be proactive. It's been going on for 10 days. The City of Ottawa asked the government to intervene. Did nothing. The public asked for intervention. Nothing happened. The Bloc Québécois has made proposals, and yet nothing happens. It wasn't until their future leader, Mark Carney, wrote in the Globe and Mail that they finally said, well, maybe they'll have to deal with this after all. This is enough. Will the Prime Minister commit for everything to be resolved by the weekend? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, perhaps my dear colleague, missed the news that the RCMP has sent more than 275 additional officers. These officers are going to support Ottawa police forces. That's just one example of the real solutions that the federal government and the RCMP have offered City of Ottawa Police Services. The Honourable Member for Rosemont-La Petite Patrie. Mr. Speaker, people across the country are struggling to pay for their rent and groceries. The demand for food banks is skyrocketing. And where's the Prime Minister? What's he doing? In Ottawa, the downtown core is under occupation. Citizens are being harassed. Their city's being stolen from them. Where's the Prime Minister? What is he doing? In times of crisis, the Prime Minister is expected to be present, but for days he has been absent. It's time for leadership. When will the Prime Minister act so that people are no longer living in terror in their own homes? The Honourable Minister.
Monsieur le Président, depuis le début de...
Mr. Speaker, from the beginning of the convoy, the federal government was there to help Ottawa Police Services with additional resources. The RCMP announced that they will offer 275 more officers. That is the reason we've seen a lot of progress in the last few days, and we will continue to be there for Ottawa residents and police services to come to the end of this convoy.
Island Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, the people of Ottawa are being terrorized by the ongoing convoy. Healthcare workers are being harassed, retail workers have been assaulted, and small businesses have had to shut down. People don't feel safe in their own city. It's completely unacceptable. At times of crisis, Canadians expect their Prime Minister to show leadership, but there has been no help to de-escalate this situation. Will the Prime Minister finally meet with municipal leaders and come up with a plan so that Canadians can feel safe?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, since the beginning of this convoy, the federal government has done everything in its power to assist the City of Ottawa as well as the services of police by providing additional RCMP resources, and I want to pause to thank them for their service on the ground. We will continue to offer whatever support that we can to ensure that Canadians feel safe when they leave their homes. Of course, we have to respect the operational independence of police services who are responsible for upholding the law.
Honourable Member for Barrie Innisfil.
Mr. Speaker, January job numbers came out, and they're really bad. 200,000 Canadian jobs gone, higher unemployment, and an inflation rate that's out of control. This has turned into a disaster, and Canadians are paying the price. Will the minister finally admit that her plan isn't working and come up with a plan that includes dealing with the cost of gas, home heating, groceries, and life becoming unaffordable for Canadian families and seniors?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding the inevitable challenges that Canadian workers and businesses have been facing because of the necessary Omicron lockdowns, I want to remind all members of this House that Canada has still recovered 101% of all jobs lost to COVID, compared to just 87% of jobs recovered in the US. And I want to say to all the members on the Conservative benches, we knew Omicron was going to hurt Canadian workers and businesses, so we put support measures in place. Why did the Conservatives vote against that?
The Honourable Member for Barrie Innisfil.
It's cold comfort for Canadians that are losing their jobs and seeing the price of everything go up, Mr. Speaker. They're skyrocketing, yet the Liberals keep pretending that everything's fine. Let's be clear, things are not fine. Canadians are struggling. It's getting almost impossible for many families to put gas in their car, food on their table, or heat their homes. Will the minister own up to her mistakes and apologize to the 200,000 Canadians who saw their jobs disappear last month?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it is the Conservatives who should be apologizing for blocking at every possible opportunity the measures that we have put in place to support Canadians during this difficult time. Of course, C2 and the lockdown support measures, but do you know what? The Canada Child Benefit is providing a single mother with 2 children without nearly $14,000. An average family in Saskatchewan will receive nearly $1,000 from the Climate Action Incentive, and seniors received an extra $500 through the GIS this summer.
Mr. Speaker, the Fraser Institute has ranked 35 countries with highly developed economies on its misery index, and Canada is ranked as 6th most miserable because of inflation and unemployment. This ranking doesn't even include the data from January, the loss of 200,000 jobs. Jason Clemens, Vice President of the Institute, said that Canadians are rightly concerned about the country's high inflation and unemployment rate. Will the Prime Minister finally admit that the strategy for Canada is an abject failure? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I want to start by thanking the member for the position he took regarding the protests, which has created a serious problem for the people of Ottawa. I hope that all Conservative MPs will follow suit. Now, when it comes to the Canadian economy, I have to say that the Conservatives are perpetuating a false economic narrative. The reality is that Canada is resilient in our economy. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the Minister for what she has to say, but I invite the Prime Minister to come out and find a solution. Now, in January, Canada lost 200,000 jobs and unemployment hit 6.5%. In December, it was 5.9%. The Liberal government has no plan for job creation, no plan to reduce inflation, and that makes it difficult for Canadians, yes, I said Canadians, to pay for the luxury of a balanced diet. Is the suggestion that they should go and eat bologna? The Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, once again, this is a false economic narrative being perpetuated by the Conservative side. I want to confirm some facts and data. Our GDP went up by 5.4% during the third trimester, like the United States, Japan, and Australia and the United Kingdom. And we managed to regain 101% of jobs lost compared to 87% in the United States.
Haldeman Norfolk.
Mr. Speaker, as of January 2022, we have lost 200,000 jobs. More Canadians are underemployed and unemployed than ever before. Canada is blessed with amazing natural resources, incredible agriculture, advanced technology, cutting-edge industry, and manufacturing sectors. When will this government get off the backs of ordinary Canadians, workers, and small businesses and allow our economy to thrive?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it is a bit rich to hear any Conservatives today presume to support Canada's small businesses. And you know why, Mr. Speaker? Because when Omicron first hit, our government was ready. We knew that the provinces would be imposing lockdowns because that's what our healthcare system needed. And so we were there. We provided support for small businesses and for workers. But the Conservatives voted against that support. Thank goodness, Mr. Speaker, that they failed.
Before going to the next question, I just want to interrupt for a second. I want to remind all the members that in the House, if they're not speaking, please make sure you have your mask on. It's just for your own safety and the safety of others. It's being considerate. The Honourable Member for Haldimand Norfolk.
That was a typical non-answer. We're all employed in this House. We need to have some compassion for those 200,000 people that are unemployed. We're not just talking about 200,000 jobs. We're talking about 200,000 families that are now wondering how to put food on the table, how to pay their bills, all while facing record inflation. So I ask my question again. When will this Prime Minister and this government allow Canadians to get back to work and to get on with their lives?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I actually agree with the member opposite that jobs are the single most important thing when it comes to the well-being of most Canadians and most Canadian families. And that's why when Canada lost 3 million jobs at the depth of the pandemic lockdowns, our government knew we had to act. And we did, with unprecedented support for workers and businesses. And the good news, Mr. Speaker, is that action worked. Canada has had one of the strongest jobs recoveries in the G7. 101% of jobs recovered compared to just 87% in the US, for example.
L'honorable député de Jonquière.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last Friday, all the premiers asked the federal government to pay its fair share of healthcare funding. They unanimously reiterated that the federal government must increase its health transfers to cover 35% of costs. They're reaching out to this Prime Minister yet again in the hope of reaching an agreement in the coming weeks. A simple question. Will Ottawa finally pay its fair share and cover 35% of healthcare costs? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, my colleague knows full well that from the beginning of the pandemic, our government was there to support Canadians and the public healthcare system throughout Canada. We have invested over $64 billion, and that's just over the last 2 years, in order to support the healthcare system. The Prime Minister was clear that we will always be there to work with our partners in the provinces and territories to support the public healthcare system that Canadians want. The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, it's a shame, but the investments that the Minister's talking about are not sustainable. They are linked to pandemic expenditures. I have a challenge for the Minister. If he thinks that the current rate is sufficient, he should look at what our leader is proposing, which is to hold a healthcare summit. If they say that 22% is enough, I promise that I'll never mention this again. When will they commit to holding a healthcare summit? The Honourable Minister for Intergovernmental Affairs. Thank you. My colleague knows full well that for nearly 2 years now, the Prime Minister has had over 35 meetings with premiers of provinces and territories, and several times we have discussed together what we can do to support the public healthcare system that Canadians want. We are always discussing with our counterparts in provinces and territories to find the best way to support a high-caliber healthcare system. The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, there's a price to be paid for underfunding healthcare. This network is stretched to the limit, and they're just hoping that nothing unusual will make it break. Today, Quebecers have the impression that they're the ones paying the price with offloading and lockdown measures. The healthcare system now has to be rebuilt, and the federal government has to prove that it's learned from its past mistakes. When will the government finally understand that they have to invest urgently in the healthcare system? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, as I explained just a few moments ago, we've invested urgently into the healthcare system throughout Canada. We were there from the beginning of the pandemic to support Canadians, Canadian businesses, and the essential healthcare system for all Canadians. When the pandemic is behind us, we will be pleased to sit down with the premiers of provinces and territories, as we have done for months, to discuss essential funding for years to come.
Colchester.
Mr. Speaker, a recent study stated that lockdowns contributed to saving 0.2% of deaths worldwide. Do you know what contributed to lockdowns in Canada, Mr. Speaker? The abysmal lack of healthcare capacity in that system. The $700 billion spent on COVID created no new beds and none of the promised 7,500 doctors and nurses from this Prime Minister have materialized.
Hear, hear.
Mr. Speaker, when will the government properly fund health care?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the opposition keeps referring to lockdowns, and I want to be really precise and understand exactly what they're talking about. What federal mandates do they oppose? Do they oppose that people have to be double vaccinated to get into a plane or to get into an airplane or to drive a truck? If they oppose that, as they have some of their members of their caucus who still are not vaccinated, can they say that? And can we have an honest discussion about the fact that perhaps they don't believe in some of the public health measures that have Canada have one of the lowest death rates in the world and one of the best pandemic responses in the world, Mr. Speaker?
The Honourable Member for Cumberland Colchester.
Mr. Speaker, in spite of the spin doctors, I am a doctor, and I want you to know that Canada has 1/3 of the ICU capacity of Germany and roughly half of that of the United States. The moral distress of working in an unsupported system and an overwhelming tsunami of backlog of cases looms. As Premier Horgan said on Friday, a quality service like this is not sustainable in its current model. When will this Liberal government end this moral distress and admit the pandemic crisis is multiplied by healthcare underfunding?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, our ICUs are filled. Canada is continuing to be in a circumstances we're seeing globally where we have enormous stress. But I would say to the opposite member, who is a doctor, that does he not want to see those numbers come down? Would he not agree that the best way to make sure those numbers come down is that people are vaccinated, that the vast preponderance of people filling our hospitals are unvaccinated, that him attacking mandates that, by the way, on our side are about ensuring people are vaccinated are injurious to this and are filling our hospitals and are exactly the problem we're facing right now.
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
The Honourable Member can shift the attention to Canadians and blame them all he likes, but at the end of the day, it is ultimately on the back of this government. We are 2 years into this pandemic, and our healthcare system has been on life support the entire time. Canadians have missed elective surgeries, they have missed early diagnosis of life-threatening diseases, and they have missed numerous other treatments. Mental health concerns are through the roof. People are literally dying. And so, yet, there's no increased funding to this anemic healthcare system under this government. They just continue to shoulder the burden off to the provinces. And my question is this, it's very simple. When will the Prime Minister stop worrying about his...
Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm deeply proud of our country. About 90% of Canadians are have at least one dose of they're vaccinated. We're seeing one of the lowest death rates from the COVID-19 anywhere in the world. But what we know is that our ICUs continue to be filled with the unvaccinated. And when the members opposite attack mandates and attack things that encourage folks to get vaccinated, I don't understand how they can, in the same breath, complain about stress on the healthcare system when they know that about 75% of people who are in ICUs are unvaccinated, even though they only represent 10% of the population. Let's get through this pandemic. Let's follow and back science.
The honourable member for Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, on southern Vancouver Island, primary care clinics have been forced to close because of understaffing, leaving residents without anywhere to turn when they're sick. Challenges finding a family doctor are not new, but after 2 years of the pandemic, critical staffing shortages and burnout have only gotten worse. The federal government has failed patients who need primary care. They've failed exhausted healthcare workers because they've failed to reverse the chronic underfunding of our healthcare system. Will the government commit to immediately increasing healthcare transfers so that all Canadians can access the healthcare they need?
The Honourable Minister.
I want to say that our commitment is to ensure that we work lockstep with provinces. And we've seen an escalation in the amount of money that we're transferring to provinces throughout this pandemic. It is essential that we work in collaboration with every jurisdiction. This is the greatest challenge that our generation has faced. We continue to meet it with science and support and leadership of working with other jurisdictions to make sure that Canada continues to have one of the best COVID responses anywhere in the world.
The honourable member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, this past weekend saw protesters blocking patients, healthcare workers, and ambulances at hospitals in major cities across Canada. This is putting lives at risk. Paramedics have been delayed, rocks were hurled at emergency vehicles, and first responders were subjected to racist slurs. This is completely unacceptable. Just weeks ago, this Parliament passed a law making it a criminal offense to intimidate, obstruct, or interfere with a healthcare worker or a patient seeking care. What is this government doing to ensure that this law is being enforced to protect Canadians?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my honourable colleague for an incredibly important question. We passed C3 that made sure that healthcare sites, hospitals are protected from the types of harassment and a barrage of attacks that we're seeing. We're going to work to make sure that that new law is implemented, and so that healthcare workers who already are carrying such a disproportionate load are not going to be influenced from not being able to do their jobs by the kind of horrific actions that we're seeing. When we see rocks thrown into ambulances, when we see the kinds of aggression that we've seen from some of these protesters, it's truly shameful, Mr. Speaker, and particularly for our frontline workers.
The honourable member for St. John's East.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. In December, this House unanimously passed Bill C3, which establishes paid sick leave for federally regulated workers and protection for health workers and those accessing their care from harassment and intimidation. As a nurse, and as someone who recently volunteered at a COVID testing clinic, and I can tell you this matters a great deal, not just to me, but to health workers across Canada. Speaker, will the Minister of Labour tell this House what's being done to bring this legislation into force? Merci.
The Honourable Minister or the Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Well, we see that an impossible amount is being asked of healthcare workers, going in every day to sacrifice to make sure that we get through this pandemic. And as we see people talking about freedoms, it's important to ask what we all do with our freedom to make life easier for those around us. What sacrifices are we making in a global pandemic to lift people up, to find ways to help our neighbors, to find ways to de-escalate tension, to make lives easier for people in one of the most trying times. C3, I think, does so much to protect those healthcare workers, but it begs a broader question about what each of us is doing in this pandemic.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, this government is ruining Canada's future. With nonchalance, this government has wasted a great deal of money on universal programs, But let's think about our seniors over 65 who have been abandoned. And now the problem is access to housing. Canadians aren't being helped to pay their rent. There has been a mind-boggling increase in housing costs. We need to act now. What immediate action will this government take to stop the problem and to give some hope to Canadian citizens? The Honourable Minister.
Let me remind the member that it was a Conservatives' plan for seniors to prolong the age of retirement from 65 to 67. Mr. Speaker, the first things we did as a government, we reversed that and gave seniors the benefits that they're entitled to. We also raised the GIS for single seniors, increased the old age security, enhanced the CPP, invested billions into housing and home care, Mr. Speaker. We've always had their backs and will continue to deliver for seniors now and into the future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Stormont Dundas, South Glengarry.
Mr. Speaker, sadly, Eastern Ontario provides the perfect example of how the Liberals have mismanaged the housing file under their watch. In 5 years, the average price of a home in the Cornwall area has doubled to over $400,000. The Liberals boast that their plan is working, but the problem is only getting worse, not better. A realtor told me that one house in Cornwall recently had 13 offers in just 4 days and got way over the asking price. As housing prices keep skyrocketing in this country, when will the Liberals realize that their plan to flood the market with cheap cash just isn't working?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives face a leadership problem on this issue. They have never spoken about affordable housing. They didn't invest adequately in all their time in office. In their election campaign platform, the word affordable housing did not show up. Neither did it show up in their opposition House motion. We've invested more than any other government. We brought the National Housing Strategy into existence. We're investing to make sure that there's more supply in the market, and we will continue to work with all provinces, territories, and the municipal and non-profit sector to ensure every Canadian has a safe and affordable place to call home.
Member for Langley Aldergrove.
Mr. Speaker, I'm deeply concerned that young families across Canada are giving up the dream of ever owning a home. Nowhere is this more true than in Metro Vancouver and the Fraser Valley, the epicenter of Canada's housing affordability crisis. People like Allison in my riding, who just in the last year saw house prices increase by more than the amount of money she and her partner were able to save up for a down payment, are falling further behind through no fault of theirs. When will this government get to work tackling the real problem, inflation?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, every time that we've brought a measure into the House to help Canadians through programs like the Canada Housing Benefit to help people with rent, the first-time homebuyer incentive, the Rapid Housing Initiative, and many, many other housing programs as part of the National Housing Strategy, every single time the Conservatives have voted against those measures. Yet they stand here today pretending to care about affordable housing solutions for Canadians. We can see through their rhetoric. We will continue to work to make sure that we build on our record investments in housing and continue to make sure that the National Housing Strategy succeeds for Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Carlton Trail, Eagle Creek.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That minister's ability to revise history is absolutely remarkable. Housing prices are rising out of reach, especially for young people and new Canadians. To date, the average price across Canada is over $720,000, with big city averages over $1 million. This government's policies are causing record inflation, reducing the ability of working Canadians to save for a down payment. Will this government put the brakes on its out-of-control spending, get serious about inflation, and implement measures to make the dream of owning a home a reality?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what is remarkable is the astronomical gap between the Conservative rhetoric and their voting record. They voted against every single measure to build more affordable housing, to put more money in the pockets of Canadian renters to help them pay with the rent, to build more housing for the most vulnerable, and yes, to allow more young Canadians to access their dream of home ownership through the first-time homebuyer incentive. So instead of offering leadership, they vote against affordable housing policies every single time, yet get up in the House of Commons and pretend to care about housing. We see through their rhetoric, and so do Canadians.
Honorable député de Salaberry-sur-Roi.
The honourable member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. Mr. Speaker, as we speak, the government has been cutting GIS payments for seniors who receive CERB legitimately. There are seniors who aren't able to pay for their medication or for rent. And yet in December, the government admitted that it had made a mistake and it said that it would compensate victims of this injustice, but only in May. Mr. Speaker, once the government had admitted that it was wrong to cut these people's GIS, why is it still continuing to cut their benefits in January, February, March, and April? The Honourable Minister.
We can all agree just how difficult and challenging this pandemic has been for seniors, particularly those most vulnerable, Mr. Speaker. That's why we worked extremely hard to strengthen income security for seniors, including with the increases to their GIS. That has helped over 900,000 low-income seniors, Mr. Speaker. Last summer, we provided direct and immediate support for seniors. And as announced in the fiscal update, we will be delivering as soon as possible a one-time payment to those who received pandemic benefits in 2020 and saw a reduction, Mr. Speaker. We have been there for seniors and will continue to have their backs.
The honourable member, l'honorable député de Salaberry-sur-Roi.
The honourable member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. Mr. Speaker, as we speak, there are seniors who are cutting their grocery budget because the federal government is not sending them their GIS. People who get the GIS aren't wealthy people. They don't have multiple credit cards to fill up while waiting for the federal gears to start turning to reimburse them. They have been sacrificing every day for 8 months. And the government has said, we know we were wrong to cut your benefits over 8 months, but you're going to have to endure 4 months more. We knew that this government has no spine, but now we can see that they have no heart either. How can the minister find this acceptable?
Mr. Speaker, we've had the backs of seniors with the greatest needs since the day we formed government, and we will continue to help those low-income seniors make ends meet. Mr. Speaker, we recognize that some seniors that took pandemic benefits because they needed them and are now facing difficulties, and that is exactly why we will be delivering as soon as possible a one-time payment to those received benefits in 2020 and saw a reduction. This automatic one-time payment will help support affected seniors by compensating them for the full loss of their guaranteed income supplement, Mr. Speaker. We will always be there to support seniors.
Honourable member for Calgary, Forest Lawn.
Applicants for the Federal Skilled Worker Program are not being invited to apply under the Express Entry, even though foreign work permits, study permits, and temporary resident visas continue to be processed. This is adding to the pain of the families who remain separated, a labour shortage that is hurting Canadian businesses, and refugees who remain stranded, feeling hopeless. Will the minister stop patting himself on the back for a job well failed and apologize to the hardships his government has caused to the nearly 2 million applicants stuck in the mismanagement of this Liberal-made backlog?
The Honourable Minister.
With respect to the honourable member and what I would say is a ginned-up question and theatrical performance, our focus throughout this pandemic has been to use the immigration system to continue to meet the needs of the Canadian economy. At a time when our borders were closed to protect the public's health, we pivoted to a strategy that started welcoming more people who were already inside Canada so our businesses could rely on access to the talent they need to succeed. And what is the result, Mr. Speaker? 107% of the jobs that were lost during the pandemic have now been recovered, compared to only 82% in the United States. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to leverage immigration to fill the needs of our economy, and I hope that member will work with me to achieve that outcome.
The honourable member for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies.
Mr. Speaker, my offices have been flooded with meetings, calls, and emails about Immigration Canada and the buildup of almost 2 million applications that haven't been processed. This has led to processing times of more than 2 years, and the applicants are running out of time. These delays are costly and highly stressful, not only to the people applying, but their many workplaces too. We had a great reputation as a country for international students and those seeking citizenship and permanent residency. What is this government doing right now to stop victimizing some of the world's most vulnerable?
Good question. The Honourable Minister.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member's question is rather timely, given that Monday of last week I announced details of the $85 million that was set aside in the recent economic and fiscal update to address processing capacity within the department. The money that we're going to be investing is going to improve processing times for work permits, for study permits, for permanent residency cards, to improve the timelines for temporary visitors coming, to allow a quicker processing of proof of citizenship, and new measures that are going to be coming online in the months ahead that will allow individual applicants to access information about their file in a digital means. Mr. Speaker, the future looks bright when it comes to immigration in Canada. And
the honourable member for Brantford Brant.
Mr. Speaker, immigration in Canada faces an unprecedented backlog under this Liberal government. Nearly 2 million applications are in the queue. My office receives dozens of calls every week. During a time of catastrophic labour shortages, thousands of foreign workers and Canadian employers are waiting years to get their applications processed. When will this government fix this Liberal-made immigration system and clear its historic backlog?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member's outrage is manufactured at best. The reality of the situation is that the pandemic caused unprecedented pressures on our immigration system because we were trying to welcome a record number of newcomers at a time when our border was closed to protect the public's health and well-being against the spread of COVID-19 in our communities. By pivoting to an internal strategy to process more people, we were able to resettle more than 400,000 new permanent residents, an all-time record in Canada. Going forward, we're going to continue to make the investments necessary so newcomers can arrive in Canada and make the kind of contributions they've been making to our economy and our communities for generations.
Le député d'Acadie-Bathurst.
The honourable member for Acadie-Bathurst. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Once it's safe, we want to see travellers from the entire world come back to Canada. Canada, as well as the beautiful riding of Acadie-Bathurst, has what the world is looking for: incredible destinations and experiences, world-class events, and some of the highest vaccination levels in the world. Can the Minister of Tourism tell the House about the measures that we are taking to welcome travellers back to Canada? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Minister of Tourism. I'd like to thank the member for Acadie-Bathurst. He is entirely right. Canada has what travellers want right now: safe locations and exceptional landscapes and experiences. Destinations Canada tells our story to the entire world. In order to be ready, our government will be providing $100 million over 3 years to the program to increase its marketing campaigns and encourage people to explore our magnificent country and everything it has to offer. We have supported the tourism sector, Mr. Speaker, and we will continue to do so.
For Simcoe North.
Hey. Mr. Speaker, white-collar criminals from around the globe love to launder their money in Canada. Experts say it's $1 billion a year industry and growing, and much of it ends up in our real estate, which drives up the cost of housing. In 2021, government agencies, including FinTrack, reduced their real estate money laundering audits by 64%. Mr. Speaker, does this government take money laundering seriously, or are we telling global criminals that Canada is open for business?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government absolutely takes money laundering in Canada and foreign money in our real estate market very, very seriously. That is why in the budget that I tabled last April, we took action on putting in place a beneficial ownership registry. That is a strong and firm commitment of our government. And I also want to point out that in legislation currently being debated in this House, we are imposing a tax on vacant property owned by non-residents. We're acting, Mr. Speaker. I'd like the Conservatives to support us.
The honourable member for Yellowhead.
Here. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, John, a constituent in my riding, has been a firearm owner for over 50 years, served in the military, and never had an issue related to the firearms he's owned.
Many criminals in Canada purchase illegal handguns and commit crimes anywhere from armed robbery to murder, and this government does nothing to stop them.
That's right.
Mr. Speaker, when will this Liberal government start punishing criminals instead of law-abiding citizens and remove the order in council so John can sell his firearms?
Yeah, when? The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, consistently what we have done is introduce responsible legislation on firearms to make sure that those laws that are in place protect Canadians, make sure that lawful firearms ownership is also protected, but that like all forms of rights and freedoms in our society, that they come with reasonable restrictions. Just as you have in any other element of life, that's what we do with firearms, because our priority is the safety of Canadians. Making sure that we do not let ideology get in the way of making decisions for public safety.
Honourable Member for Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke.
Mr. Speaker, it's time for these divisive Liberals to heal the wounds they've inflicted upon Canadians. The Prime Minister has led a campaign of hatred against those who don't agree with his edicts. He's called them unacceptable, misogynist, racist. It's his government who just last week refused to condemn the use of blackface during Black History Month. Will the Prime Minister end his cruelty to Canadians who simply don't trust him? End the mandates.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think, again, we should reflect on end the mandates, because federally the mandates that exist mean that when you get onto an airplane, you have to be vaccinated to protect those around you. That's rooted in irrefutable science. When we look at our ICUs and how full they are with the unvaccinated, I'm confused why the member opposite would be against mandates and against making sure that people are protected in public safety. If we talk about division, it seems playing games with science and not giving people clear information about public health is where the games are at. I would encourage the member to instead advise everybody to get vaccinated, and let's help get out of this pandemic.
The Honourable Member for Hamilton East, Stony Creek.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians with disabilities living in Ottawa are being disproportionately impacted by those occupying the downtown. Paratranspo is unable to reach residents. Individuals with mobility issues have been unable to leave their homes, and some are now fearing that they won't be able to receive home care. People's lives and well-being are at stake, but instead of trying to help resolve the situation, the Conservatives are emboldening demonstrators, and leaked emails show their new leader doesn't want them to leave. They want to continue making it a problem for political gain. Can the Minister of Disability Inclusion please inform the House about what needs to be done to ensure persons with disabilities living in Ottawa are no longer held hostage in their own homes?
The Honourable Minister of Disability and Inclusion.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member from Hamilton East, Stony Creek, for his really important question. These demonstrations have had a serious impact on the health and safety of Ottawa citizens with disabilities, whether it's access to home care, access to other supports, access to food delivery, access to paratranspo. This is serious. People are homebound and don't have food or access to their much-needed supports. I urge all members in this House from all parties to support our most vulnerable citizens and tell the demonstrators that it's time to go home.
The Honourable Member for South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Prime Minister, Speaker, 2 weeks ago, my NDP colleagues and I wrote a letter to the Minister of the Environment about Roberts Bank Terminal 2 proposal on the Fraser River Delta. We pointed out that critical information gathered by the Minister's own scientists had been hidden from the public in the assessment process. The information showed that this project would result in irremediable damage to the local environment and endanger species living there. Will the Minister stop muzzling scientists, make this information public, and extend the consultation process?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As my honourable colleague knows, this process has been ongoing, an environmental assessment, for the past number of years. It has proceeded through a whole range of different phases and is now in the process of coming towards a decision. Certainly, we will be considering all of the science, including science with respect to migratory birds, with respect to the impacts of noise, and other issues that have arisen throughout the course of the process and on which the panel has provided information.
The Honourable Member for Spadina, Fort York.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Canadian Heritage. Performing artists have contacted me about the seriousness of their situation during COVID. There is no fallback plan. This is their livelihood. Mr. Speaker, the arts community is an integral part of the economy, and the additional funding is a positive step for sector resilience. But we're far from the end of this crisis. Is the minister considering holding a national conference on the performing arts to ascertain the best course of action moving forward?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've said it, and I'll say it once again, we won't leave anyone behind, especially our artists, our creators, or our arts and culture sectors. Supporting them is my biggest priority. And last week, we launched the Canada Performing Arts Workers Resilience Fund. There's a $60 million program tailor-made for arts and culture sector, Mr. Speaker. We have different programs for them, and we love.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time hearing the minister. I'd have to ask him to start over again so we can get the full answer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I said it before, we won't leave anyone behind, and especially not our artists, our creators, or our arts and culture workers. And supporting them, as I said it many times, is my biggest priority. We launched that special fund, the Canadian Performing Arts Workers Resilience Fund. That fund, coupled with others there to support our artists, Mr. Speaker, we will never leave anyone behind.
And I'm afraid that's all the time we have today for question period. C'est tout le temps que nous avons. J'ai l'honneur
I have the honor to inform the House that for the purposes and under the provisions of Article 50 of the Parliament of Canada Act, the following members have been appointed members of the Board of Internal Economy, namely Mr. Bressard,
District of Barrie-Innisfil, in place of Mr. Deltel, member for the electoral district of Louis-Saint-Laurent, and Mr. Calkin, member for the electoral district of Red Deer-Lacombe, in place of Mr. Richards, member of the electoral district of Banff-Airdrie. Tabling of documents. Dépôt de documents. Introduction of government bills. Déclaration de ministre.
Statements by Minister.
Reports from interparliamentary delegations. Presenting reports from committees. Introduction of private members' bills. Mr. McGuinty, seconded by Ms. Zerowitz, moves for leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act Respecting Arab Heritage Month. This motion is deemed adopted. The Honourable Member for Ottawa South.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It is indeed an honour and a privilege to rise in the House of Commons to introduce my private member's bill that would establish the month of April in Canada as Arab